What workforce trends and priorities are impacting the public sector across Australia and New Zealand in 2026? Today, we're joined by Tessa Weerasooriya, Talent Acquisition and Experience Partner from Melbourne Park, and Peter Crestani, Branch Manager from Frog Recruitment, to break down what is shaping hiring decisions, career choices, and workforce planning across the public sector. Supported by the data from Australia and New Zealand's leading employment report, our guest industry speaker experts will look at what workforce priorities are leading the charge for public sector teams, which skills are becoming more important in 2026, what trends will shape public sector heading into 2027, and are businesses moving quickly enough on AI or taking the right level of caution? Hello and welcome to People and Frog Recruitment's 2026 Public Sector Market Analysis. I'm Nicole, Consterdine, Recruitment Consultant and Government Lead here in our Melbourne office. And jumping straight into it today, we're going to talk about what trends are shaping public sector in 2026. Based on the latest data from our 2026 Employment and Salary Trends Market Report, before we move on to the conversation, let's quickly set the scene for the public sector market across Australia and New Zealand. Across both markets, the public sector is heading into 2026 in a cautious but still active position. This is not a market where hiring has stopped. The pressure is more around how hiring happens, how quickly teams can move, and how agencies balance service delivery with budget, structure, and workforce constraints. In Australia, many government teams are still dealing with slow and complex recruitment processes. Government recruitment processes are typically more structured and require more approval than those in private sector, which can result in longer hiring timeframes for both permanent and contingent roles. Permanent hiring often takes months, and even temporary and contract hiring can take longer than comparable private sector recruitment processes. That creates a real risk because when processes move slowly, strong candidates do not wait, and hiring speed has become one of the biggest pressure points for public sector employers. At the same time, budgets remain tight or largely unchanged for many teams, and that means that managers are being asked to maintain delivery, cover leave, fill skill gaps, and support project work without always having extra resources available. Skill shortages also continue to impact a range of government functions, particularly in areas such as IT, project management, and data capability. Political cycles are also contributing to a more cautious approach to workforce planning. In Victoria, the next state election is scheduled for November 2026, and as election periods approach, agencies often become more measured in workforce planning and hiring decisions while they balance the delivery requirements and changing priorities and future funding considerations. A similar theme is emerging in New Zealand, with 2026 also being an election year there. Many public sector employers are operating in an environment where funding, workforce planning, and future priorities feel more politically sensitive. The caution is being reinforced by significant public sector reform. The New Zealand government has announced plans to reduce the public sector workforce by 8,700 roles by 2029, alongside proposed agency mergers and broader organisational change. Employers are having to think carefully about workforce structure, capability gaps where critical talent needs to be retained or replaced. Across New Zealand, the market is being shaped by restructures, talent attraction, upskilling, and demand for government-related skills, particularly across policy, project and programme management, operational delivery, data and insights, accounting, finance, and technology. Overall, this is a public sector market where demand is still present, but employers need to be sharper, faster, and more deliberate in how they attract and secure talent. So, from shifting candidate expectations to growing demand for specialist skills, employers are navigating big changes in 2026. To break down more about what is happening in the market across both Australia and New Zealand, we are joined today by Tessa, Talent Acquisition and Experience Partner from Melbourne Park, and Peter Crestani, Branch Manager from Frog Recruitment. Hi both, how are you?
Good, thanks Nicole. Thanks for having us.
Good. Thanks for joining us. So I'll start by first looking through the Australian market with you, Tessa. So to start off, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in Melbourne Park?
Sure thing. So I've been working in recruitment for about 5 years now. I started off at StarTech, which is a global outsourcing company, and my focus was on mass recruitment for call centres across Melbourne, as well as their specialised head office roles. From there, I moved to my current role as talent acquisition and experience partner at Melbourne Park. And I've been here for about 2 years now, and it has been the most phenomenal experience of my career so far. So I look after all the permanent and fixed-term recruitment across the park and our venues, that being Rod Laver Arena, Amy Park, Margaret Court Arena, John Cain Arena, and Centrepiece, our premier function space, as well as our head office. So that includes roles across all departments, so everything from procurement to horticulture to back-of-house operations, safety, commercial, venue management, you name it, we probably need it. I'm also involved in recruiting our casual workforce through group assessment centres that we hold a few times a year, and work with a number of recruitment agencies like yourselves for specialised roles that we require in our space too. So it's a pretty dynamic and exciting environment, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely some definitely iconic venues in there. I can imagine it's very exciting and definitely very busy during certain points of the year as well. At the end of 2025, many public sector organisations were preparing for that steady but still pressured market heading into 2026. How would you describe the first half of 2026 for you and the team at Melbourne Park? And would you say it's played out the way that you expected?
The first half of 2026 has been massive in terms of recruitment for Melbourne Park. We did predict at the end of 2025 that the year would be one of growth, development and change for our organisation, and that has certainly been the case. On average, we've been recruiting for about 10 to 20 roles at any given time, and for a lean team, that can be quite a lot to juggle. We have also continued to see exceptionally strong interest in roles at Melbourne Park, with some of our largest application numbers to date. For example, a recent event coordinator role we had drew about 300 applicants, and roles in our IT and commercial teams have also attracted over 200 applicants each as well. So we are quite lucky in that we don't suffer from a shortage of candidates, thanks to the fantastic pull of our brand and the incredible events that our team puts on for Melbourne. But it does mean we have our work cut out for us in order to find those really superstar candidates to fill niche roles in a really unique workplace. So I would say that the volume of recruitment has exceeded our initial expectations for this year so far. But for an organisation like Melbourne Park that is so committed to continuous improvement and constantly trying to fine-tune our approach and delivery, it's not a huge surprise at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. I know we've done some work together, and I mean, who wouldn't want to work for Melbourne Park? So as we said, first half of 2026 has been that period of adjustment for many teams, particularly with expectations around the delivery, efficiency and adaptability continue to change. But have you seen any have you or the team seen any shifts over those past 6 months in terms of priorities, pressures or expectations that maybe haven't been there previously?
I think the pressure comes from the urgency in which roles need to be filled. In an environment like ours, we have to be extremely adaptable. So sporting fixtures change based on which teams win matches. Artists announce they're suddenly doing a world tour. And while there is so much planning and preparation behind the scenes, our teams need to be able to perform at the drop of a hat, which means our resources need to be in place too. And this has been a constant of Melbourne Park. So the core priorities haven't fundamentally changed, but the timeframes and expectations around them have. So with the general pace of the world increasing steadily, things have intensified significantly. It's meant more events more often. And so while we need to focus on onboarding the best talent, we also need to move quickly. And this requires extremely strong time management and prioritization skills. I thought I knew what a fast-paced environment meant before, but since working at Melbourne Park, that has taken on a whole new meaning. We've also implemented a new HRIS, or Human Resources Information System, system with a customized recruitment module. And that certainly helped with streamlining our processes. But again, with our continuous improvement mindset, we're always looking for further efficiencies. One change that has taken place, though, is that we're recruiting for far more fixed-term contracts than we have in the past, and that's been due to a significant number of projects being undertaken across the business. And this has kind of come with its own challenges as well, as experienced candidates can be reluctant to leave the security of their permanent roles. We have tried to combat this by making our contract lengths as long as practical, and have also been actively promoting internal development through a number of secondment opportunities, and that's been incredibly well received. Another key priority for us has definitely also been increasing the diversity of our workforce. Again, this has always been on the cards for Melbourne Park, but we're making even more of a push to improve. And a recent example of that one has been the recruitment of our general operators in our back-of-house venue operations team, which has historically been more of a male-dominated role. And so by using more inclusive advertising and shortlisting practices, we were able to broaden the candidate pool and ultimately able to appoint a group where 30% identified as female or non-binary. And importantly, every one of those successful candidates were highly experienced and really well qualified. So we were really pleased with that outcome.
Yeah, great. And I think a lot of the points that you've just talked on there are very common kind of across the public sector as well, in terms of trying to hit those targets and secondments and being able to move people. So yeah, I think that is common in this space. As you said, working in an environment like Melbourne Park, it requires people to adapt quickly and manage a lot of different moving parts. So from your perspective, are there any skills or capabilities that are becoming more important for professionals to stay effective in 2026?
So I guess, as mentioned previously, adaptability in and of itself is a hugely important skill in our workplace. And another thing that we focus on, which is a bit of an unusual one, but self-awareness is a skill that we place quite a bit of importance on at Melbourne Park. So this means both the candidate's strengths and areas for improvement, and it can be a very fine line because you certainly don't want to make it seem like you have a lot of gaps. But as we're often trying to look a few steps ahead, showcasing your current skill set, but also your potential for development can put you in a really great position. Employers are looking for people to invest in and who can articulate the direction they want to grow in. And so with that, self-awareness has become increasingly valuable because people who understand both their skills and their development areas are generally more receptive to feedback, they adapt more quickly to change, and take greater ownership of their growth as well. Collaboration and strategic thinking are also very helpful skills to possess. With things being as interconnected as they are these days, a simple project at Melbourne Park, or any organisation for that matter, tends to interact or impact with a number of different teams and stakeholders. So having the foresight to think about those implications and the willingness to work through them and be really solution-driven can be extremely beneficial. Outside of those things, strong leadership skills, being an effective communicator, and having excellent stakeholder management skills are generally at the top of our lists. Tech literacy and being open to AI are just kind of standard requirements these days, alongside technical experience and qualifications, of course. But having the right soft skills can really make candidates stand out, we feel.
Yeah, and definitely that's great advice, and especially if there's any job seekers listening, to focus on that when they're potentially interviewing as well. Across the public sector, there's many teams that are facing that continued pressure around service delivery, workforce capability, changing stakeholder expectations. So if you're looking ahead to the next 12 months, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge for you and the team, and how do you think teams will need to respond to that as well?
I would imagine that the current challenges will likely remain and intensify over the coming months. As our organisation continues to work on improving our approach and delivery to try to give the best possible experience to our customers and stakeholders, our roles are becoming more and more specialised. So along with high volumes of recruitment, quick turnaround, and large applicant numbers, we will need to continuously find unicorns that fill niche gaps in our particular environment. So the aim is to definitely be more proactive in our recruitment strategies, so trying to understand where the key talent lies in the market, building our pipelines early and staying close to movement and motivation across critical sectors. For a lean team, again, this can be challenging, but it's certainly something we're working towards with the assistance of our agency partners as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we love a unicorn in recruitment. It's a phrase that comes up all the time, hunting for those unicorns. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing those insights. I'm going to shift the gears slightly now and speak to Peter in New Zealand, branch manager at Frog Recruitment. So thanks for joining us, Peter, and thank you again for your time. Tessa will come back to you again soon. But much like here in Victoria, New Zealand is going to head into an election year, which is going to add that extra layer of uncertainty to a sector that's already facing ongoing budget pressures, government announcement with nearly 9,000 public sector jobs cut by mid-2029. So, Peter, from your perspective, how would you describe the general feel across the New Zealand public sector for the first half of 2026? And are the agencies moving ahead, slowing down, or waiting for more certainty?
The major things I would see, the words I would use would be flat and stressed. And under pressure. It was interesting, the budget was announced here in New Zealand mid-May, and a week before that budget announcement, the government also announced the further cuts in the public sector. And that week it was like walking around a morgue around some of the government agencies, so very depressed viewpoint. So quite a different picture to what Tessa has described. Mine is not so positive here in Wellington. It's been a very, very tough time. It's challenging. People have to do more with less. There's quite a few stresses coming into the system, and will continue for quite some time.
Yeah. Yeah. And what would you say is the biggest shift that you've experienced or seen in what agencies or employers or public sectors are wanting from their teams?
A lot more focus on the exact skill set and experience that they're looking for. To the personality fit is becoming more important. Tessa alluded to that and talking about how soft skills are important, self-awareness, etc. That's very important here as well. I think your reputation, Wellington is a bit of a village, so your reputation for your delivery and your current and past employers can be an advantage or a disadvantage depending on how you've gone and what people think of your delivery. So there's also, in government, there's the shifts. So government priorities have funding that goes with that. So, and it's always been this way where it sort of flows around the system depending on where the priority is and where the money's going. And at the moment, the difference between an organisation or a work stream that's a priority for the government versus one that's not is quite huge. So those that are a priority are getting money, but more pressure, and those that aren't a priority, it's getting more difficult. So we're having to do the same as they were doing before, but with a lot less resources and money and funding. So it is changing, and it will continue to change.
Yeah. And are there any specific skills or capabilities that you think are becoming the most important for public sector professionals to be able to stay ahead in 2026?
Yeah, well, I think it's very much about honing your craft. So looking for career development, looking for opportunities to learn and grow, learning AI, that's becoming more important, people skills, doing a good job. It does seem to be quite a conservative market at the moment in that it's difficult to get a step-up type opportunity at all. Most of the government agencies are looking to replace like with like, so they have a certain skill set and experience level they're looking for, and they want to replace that role with someone with the same sort of skills, if not better. The sign-offs, I think Tessa talked about, you talked about sign-offs earlier. That does seem to be another issue for us at the moment, in that a lot of clients are having to go through more hoops to bring people on, getting sign-offs a lot further up the food chain than might have been previously. That's not the case in all organisations, but certainly in some.
Yeah.
So, yeah, solidify your experience, hone your skills, look for opportunities.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Thank you. And how do you think the role of public sector teams have evolved over the last 6 months? And additionally, how have the expectations and what businesses are needing from public sector teams changed along with that?
Yeah, that's the private sector one's a bit difficult to answer, but with government, it's a big beast. It takes a long time to move and to change. And it's the same in the private sector for large corporates too, to change their culture and their direction. It's not an easy thing to do. What we're seeing is that the government policies sometimes are changing. The recruitment processes are getting more challenging at times. Sometimes it's fine. It really depends on the organisation. There's a lot of teams that are working really, really hard, and they're having to do it with less people, and getting more resources when something else comes on makes it extremely challenging. So learning to live with having to do the same, if not more, with less resources and less money, it's a challenging time. But a lot of them are working really hard. I know some very hard-working, thoughtful, smart people trying to do the best they can, and generally they're doing really well. But it's learning to deal with stress more in the workplace, I think, is part of it.
Yeah, I think that's not too dissimilar to here in Victoria. I quite often hear it with clients that it's like, we could do with more people, but we don't have the money to have more people. So yeah, probably public sector in general, I think that's the feeling. Looking ahead to the rest of 2026 and into 2027, what do you think will be the biggest challenge for those public sector teams, and what trends do you think will define how the public sector responds to that?
Well, the first thing is the election, so that does have a huge impact on government sector recruitment. Generally, 6 to 8 weeks out before an election, there's more of a hiatus in recruitment, because waiting to see who's going to get elected, and then after the election, there's the forming of, with MMP, you've got to form a government, so that takes a little bit of horse trading, if you will, between the politicians to decide who's going to be and that will set the priorities. That new government will set the priorities. There is a lot of pre-planning that goes in to understand if it's the incumbents, what are their policies, what will drive the next couple of years, and then if it's going to be another direction, then what will that look like? So there's a bit of kind of second guessing and planning that goes on with that. But elections certainly the biggest thing here in New Zealand, and the economy as well. You know, we've got all the turmoil in the world and what happens in the Middle East. That does have a major impact. We've just had an OCR increase, in the cash rate yesterday. So the economy's moving along a little bit, and the Reserve Bank's trying to just make sure inflation doesn't take too much of our hard-earned money as it is. So economics, world economy, election, some of the major drivers.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to bring on. So good segue. I wanted to get a broader view across both markets in terms of AI and the impact on the public sector space. So as we said, it's already reshaping how many businesses think about productivity, skills, and team structures. So I'm interested to understand how that's actually playing out on ground as well. So I'll start first this time with you. Peter, our report shows that AI in government team is prominent, with 35% using AI for prompt writing, 31% for process optimization, and then 30% for real-time problem solving. In the public sector space, do you think businesses are moving fast enough with AI, moving too slowly, or taking the right level of caution? And how do you think AI is starting to shift the roles and expectations within public sector teams?
Well, I think it's a battle between safety and adoption. So governments tends to be very, very conservative. And if something works out, that's great. But if it doesn't work out, they get into trouble, and it's very public. So there's a natural, and it should be quite conservative. The long-term planning is really difficult with AI, and I know there's, in the New Zealand government, there's a lot of work going on to what could happen, what can they adopt, how can they do it safely, how can they manage the data and quarantine that. So there's a lot of work that has to go into it. I think the adoption is slow and has a lot more legs in it to happen for people. I know here at Frog and 𝗵𝗂𝗶𝗰, we're doing a lot of work on that at the moment, and around back-end processes and marketing, etc.
Similarly for us, I've seen slightly different approaches between the Australian federal government and probably at a Victorian state government level as well, in terms of their approaches, that maybe being more cautious or sort of giving more policies and structures around how you can actually utilise it as well. Tessa, from your side of things, have you seen an AI implementation evolve more rapidly over the course of this year than in previous years for you and the team? And if so, what are those conversations around it looking like?
So AI usage is definitely more prevalent this year than in the past, but I would say for the most part, it has been a positive change. It can be a big time saver, of course, and provide summarized data for us to work more efficiently. So generally, conversations around AI are cautiously optimistic in that we would really use it as a tool to enhance the way that we currently work. It's super helpful in meetings, for example, for note-taking and synthesizing our ideas when we're brainstorming. We are still fairly manual in our processes though, and candidates may be pleased to know that we currently don't use any automatic AI filtering when reviewing candidates. It is a human on the other end assessing applications for suitability, which can be time consuming, but it has its benefits too. That's not to say that we're not open to more efficient ways of working. However, that's not going to be at the cost of finding the right talent for us. We are also, of course, aware of a number of candidates utilising AI themselves as part of their applications and even during online interviews too. And so that's really reinforced the importance for us of having multi-stage in-person interactions, so we can generally get a really good sense of the candidate before they're offered the role. Overall, though, I would say that in a people-focused business such as ours, where it's all about customer experience, AI can be seen a bit more as an enabler rather than a replacement. So it might change some of the way we perform our tasks, but a friendly face, human interaction and connection remain absolutely central to both the live events industry and recruitment overall.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Definitely some good points there. And I agree with a lot of what you were saying. So big thank you to both of you today for giving us some incredible insights and useful insights into the market. If anyone watching today is wanting to reach out and get in touch with either Tessa Weerasooriya from Melbourne Olympic Park or Peter Crestani at our Frog team over in New Zealand, you can visit the comments and all of the information is there below. Thank you both once again. Just a reminder that all of the insights shared today are based off our 2026 Employment and Salary Trends report. If you'd like a deeper dive into salaries, benefits and workplace trends across the market, you can request a copy today by scanning the QR code that is on screen now or clicking the link in the comments below. And lastly, if you're looking to grow your career or build your team with the right talent, the People to People group can help. And as an award-winning recruitment agency, we operate across Australia with specialist teams in every market. Across in New Zealand, we've proudly recruited for over 24 years through Frog Recruitment with offices in both Auckland and Wellington. The contact details are on the screen now, or you can see the link in the comment or reach out to one of our teams today. And if you're looking for help here in Melbourne, feel free to reach out to myself, Nicole Consterdine. I'm more than happy to have a chat, and my details are all listed in the comments as well. That is it for today. So thank you very much for joining us for our 2026 public sector update. We'll see you next time.